Welcome back to the Samvaad Podcast Series, Decoding the Scriptures. Today we're diving into something a little bit different.
Yeah.
The 1992 Dhrupad Annual.
Interesting.
Now you might be thinking,
Yeah.
what does a musical journal
Right.
have to do with decoding scriptures?
It's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
While not directly scriptural,
Uh-huh.
this journal offers a really unique lens, I think,
Cool.
for understanding the cultural and historical context that surrounds these ancient Indian traditions.
I like that.
Yeah.
Think of it like music is a language.
Right.
And like any language, it reflects beliefs and values,
Absolutely.
the experiences of the people who create it.
Mm-hmm.
So by exploring Dhrupad,
Right.
we can gain insights into the broader cultural landscape
Exactly.
that shaped the development of scriptural traditions.
Precisely.
So this Dhrupad Annual,
Yes,
it's like a treasure trove of information.
it is.
We have scholarly articles, historical accounts,
Yes.
and even glimpses into the lives of legendary musicians,
Absolutely.
all within these pages.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's jump into it.
Okay.
The Dhrupad Annual has a few key goals that it lays out.
Okay.
It wants to chronicle this growing interest in Dhrupad,
Right.
promote scholarly research,
Mm-hmm.
and also wants to be a really valuable resource for further study.
It does. And it also, you
Right.
know, consciously bridges the past and present,
Yeah.
ensuring that, you know, that legacy of Dhrupad continues.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting to note that the journal publishes in both Hindi and English,
Right.
making it accessible to a wider audience.
That's right. And I think that speaks to
Yeah.
a desire to share this knowledge, both within India and internationally.
Absolutely.
Now, one article that really caught my eye
Okay.
has the title, Tansen and the Tradition of Dhrupad Songs in the Braj Language, from the 16th century to the present day.
Wow, what a title.
This title just screams like epic historical journey.
It does. It really sets the stage
Yeah.
for something special.
So we know
Yeah.
Tansen is a remarkable figure.
He is a poet-composer
Hmm?
deeply embedded in the Mughal court.
Yes.
And this article really explores how his work
Okay.
reflects this convergence of devotional literature,
Okay.
courtly poetry,
Yeah.
and musical innovation.
And highlights, I think, the
Yeah.
importance of the Braj language. It was the language
Yeah.
of lyrical poetry in northern India during that period.
Exactly. And its musicality
Yes.
made it just perfect for Dhrupad.
What's fascinating to me is how this article
Yeah.
challenges the common perception
Okay.
that the Dhrupad was purely religious music.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when we think of
Uh-huh.
Dhrupad, some people think,
Yeah.
okay, this is
Religious.
like very serious music,
Mhm.
only for devotional purposes.
Right.
But that's not the case.
No, it reveals. Yeah.
Dhrupad's versatility.
Okay.
It wasn't confined to one expression.
Okay.
It was capable of conveying a wide range
Yeah.
of emotions and intellectual ideas.
So the article really digs into the historical context.
It does.
Pulling from a variety of sources, including Persian texts.
Those Persian sources are crucial.
Yeah.
They provide such a unique viewpoint,
Okay.
offering factual details and insights that sometimes complement,
Uh-huh.
sometimes challenge
Wow.
the information that we find
Okay.
in Sanskrit treatises on music.
I see.
It helps create a more complete and balanced picture.
It's like piecing together a puzzle
It is.
using all the available fragments.
Absolutely. And the author really emphasizes
Yeah.
considering both written and oral traditions.
Yes, because
Yeah.
that's key to understanding any cultural practice.
Absolutely.
Right. The lived experiences, the memories passed down
Right.
through generations.
Yes.
They offer a depth.
That written records alone just can't capture.
They breathe life into the history.
It's not just facts on a page, but a
Yeah.
sense of
Right.
how these traditions were lived and felt.
Exactly.
Now, the article also brings up an interesting point about modern Dhrupad interpretations,
Okay.
suggesting that some scholars
Mm-hmm.
have reconstructed its history
Right.
based on specific agendas,
That's interesting.
sometimes overlooking
Yeah.
key historical sources.
This raises the question,
Yeah,
through what lens are we viewing history?
right.
It reminds us to be critical
Mm-hmm.
of any single narrative
Oh, okay.
and to consider the potential biases
Right.
that might shape our understanding.
Because history is constantly being reinterpreted
It is.
and looked at with a new lens.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about the challenges
Okay.
of studying Tansen's work.
Okay.
There's a lot of mystique
Right.
around
Yeah.
him,
Mm-hmm.
and many texts attributed to him might not be authentic.
Separating legend from fact.
It's key here.
It's like being a historical detective.
It is.
So one of the most valuable clues are the Dhrupad songs
Okay.
that are attributed to Tansen.
Right.
And this article actually provides translations of some lyrics,
Interesting.
giving us a direct glimpse into his artistry.
And through these lyrics, we
Yes.
connect with Tansen on a personal level.
Yes.
We hear his voice, his emotions,
Right.
his unique perspective
Yes.
expressed through poetry and music.
Now, the article also suggests some avenues for future research.
Okay.
It points to the need to explore the works of other poet-musicians,
Okay.
like Nayak Baksu and Jagannath Kavirai,
Interesting.
to delve into hagiographic literature
Okay.
and to examine the connections between court musicians and Sufi saints.
Each of these areas offers a unique perspective on that era.
It encourages us to look beyond the individual and see how music connected.
These diverse religious and social groups.
It's about understanding the influences that shaped Dhrupad's development and its role in society.
Now, which leads perfectly to the next article, which focuses on a very specific aspect of Dhrupad, reviewing Sadra.
Okay.
Interestingly, even among musicians, there's debate about what exactly Sadra is.
Interesting.
So here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The author, Ritvik Sanyal, shares insights from his training in the Dagar tradition.
The Dagarvani style is so renowned for its purity and adherence to tradition.
Right.
That gives his perspective a lot of weight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He even learned directly from the late Ustad Zia Mohyuddin Dagar.
Oh, wow.
A true master.
A legend.
Now, Sanyal suggests that Sadra is not just a musical form. It's deeply intertwined
Interesting.
with the Sufis.
The connection to Sufism is key.
Yes.
According to the Dagar tradition. Sadra should ideally feature texts by Sufi poets or those influenced by Sufi philosophy. It's about expressing a specific spiritual sensibility through music.
So what does this all mean?
Right.
When we listen to Sadra, we're not just experiencing melody and rhythm. We're tapping into a rich tapestry of philosophical and spiritual ideas.
It's about understanding that underlying meaning.
Right.
The emotional and spiritual context that informs the musical choices.
And Sanyal even breaks down these philosophical categories the Sadra texts often explore. He discusses this concept of Brahman.
Right.
And its various forms, including those with and without form and attributes.
It highlights the intellectual depth that underpins this musical tradition, a layer of complexity that might not be apparent to a casual listener.
It's a reminder that music can be a vehicle for exploring these profound philosophical and spiritual ideas.
Absolutely.
But Sanyal also notes that Sadra encompasses all types of Dhrupad compositions that are set to the japtal. A 10-beat rhythmic cycle.
So this is where the musical structure comes in, while Sadra shares those fundamental Dhrupad characteristics. It has a distinct quality of vivacity and fluidity that sets it apart.
It's not as serious as some other Dhrupad compositions. He describes it as having a lighter, more fluid feel.
It's this dance between the spiritual and the musical, where rhythm and melody create this unique, expressive experience.
And he doesn't just tell us about Sadra.
No.
He gives specific examples, song texts from the Dagar tradition that showcase the diversity within this genre.
He provides examples of Sadra with Sufi texts, devotional texts, even those that are exploring musical theory.
It's like a Sadra tasting menu.
It is.
It's giving us a sense of the range and variety within this musical form.
And through these examples, we begin to appreciate the nuances, the subtle differences that distinguish Sadra from other forms of Dhrupad.
That's like learning a new language.
It is.
Where each word and phrase carries a specific meaning, enriching the communication.
As we delve deeper into Dhrupad, we see connections and patterns that link music to history, to philosophy, to spirituality.
It's a reminder that music is a reflection of the culture.
Absolutely.
That creates a window into the soul of a people.
Yes.
Now let's turn to another article. that analyzes Dhrupad texts that are compiled in this remarkable collection called the Kramak Pustak Malika. It's like a musical encyclopedia for Dhrupad and Tomar.
Wow.
It was meticulously compiled by the renowned musicologist Vishnu Narayan Bhatkande.
Oh, wow.
And it captures a vast repertoire that might have been lost to time.
That's amazing.
This article analyzes the texts, breaking them down by raga, language, and even the ideas they convey.
What's fascinating is it reveals this interconnectedness of different musical traditions. The article highlights compositions that originated in temples, shedding light on this exchange between courtly and devotional music.
It's like tracing the threads of influence.
It is.
Seeing how musical ideas flow between different parts of Indian society.
The article presents its findings in a very structured way, using tables to show the number of compositions in each raga and tala. And a clear pattern emerges. The Shatal Tala dominates the collection.
Now, for those of us who aren't Tala experts, what does that tell us?
It suggests that the Shatal, a 12-beat rhythmic cycle, was just fundamental to Dhrupad and Tomar during that period, represented in the Kramak Pustak Malika.
I see.
It might reflect the rhythmic preferences of the musicians or the prevailing style of that era.
So it reminds us that rhythm plays a vital role in shaping the character and feel of a composition.
The analysis also looks at the languages used in these texts. Braj Bhasha, which we discussed earlier, its relation to Tansen is the most prominent. But there are also compositions.
Oh, wow.
In Bhojpuri, Awadhi, Bundelkhandi, Punjabi, Urdu, Rajasthani, even Kari Boli.
That's incredible.
It is.
It speaks to the cultural diversity woven into the fabric of Dhrupad.
And that diversity is reflected not just in language, but also in the content. The article notes that Dhrupad texts generally have greater literary merit than Tomar compositions, though there are exceptions in both forms.
So each composition seems to tell a story.
It does.
Express an emotion, explore an idea. With language enhancing the musical experience.
The analysis also dives into an intriguing detail. The structure of the compositions. It observes that most Dhrupad and Tomar texts in this collection only have 2 sections, while traditionally Dhrupad has 4.
Now, why the discrepancy?
The article suggests it's due to the nature of oral tradition. As compositions are passed down, certain sections can be lost or forgotten.
A reminder that even these cherished traditions are subject to the passage of time. But thankfully, we have collections like the Kramak Pustak Malika to help preserve these musical treasures.
This is why this type of analysis is so crucial. It illuminates the past. And it provides valuable insights for contemporary musicians and scholars, helping them understand the nuances of Dhrupad and Tomar.
It's about appreciating the depth of these traditions and ensuring that they continue to thrive.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears a bit. The next article looks at the achievements of the rural areas, adjoining Kanpur in the singing of Dhrupad.
So this article offers a perspective on how Dhrupad was cultivated outside urban centers. It argues that change is often slower in rural areas, and artistic practices are less influenced by trends.
It's like stepping into a world where tradition is preserved more organically.
The author, having grown up in a village near Kanpur, has personal experience with this rural Dhrupad tradition.
Oh, wow.
He shares anecdotes and biographical sketches of local singers highlighting their dedication and artistry.
It's a testament to Dhrupad's enduring power.
It is.
That it flourished.
Yes.
Not just in courts and cities, but also in rural India.
The article highlights a key aspect of this rural tradition. The emphasis on compositions over improvisation.
Interesting. So in these rural settings, the focus was on preserving and performing specific compositions rather than elaborate improvisation?
It reflects a different approach.
Okay.
A reverence for the musical legacy passed down through generations.
Like treating each composition as a sacred text.
Exactly.
To be honored and performed with precision.
The article mentions a village called Kahenjari, about 60 kilometers from Kanpur, where a wealthy landowner, Seth Laxmi Narayan, was a great patron of music.
Patronage was so vital.
It was.
For sustaining these artistic traditions.
Yes.
And he wasn't just a patron. He was a connoisseur and performer himself.
He built a temple dedicated to Vaman, an avatar of Vishnu, and this temple became a hub for musical activity.
It's fascinating how temples often served as cultural centers.
Yes.
Right? Hosting festivals and gatherings.
Right.
For musicians and artists.
This temple hosted a grand 3-day music festival.
Wow.
During the annual Vaman Vadasi celebration.
Imagine that. 3 days and nights of continuous music.
Yes.
With Dhrupad and Tomar at the heart of it.
Musicians from all over Uttar Pradesh and beyond would come to perform.
That's incredible.
And share their art.
The article lists many renowned Dhrupad singers who graced this festival. Pandit Raghunath Prasad Dwivedi, Pandit Devi Prasad Dixit, Pandit Veni Madhav Dubey, and Pandit Laxmi Narayan Tiwari, to name a few.
It must have been incredible to witness such a gathering of talent, to hear these masters perform in a setting that was both sacred and celebratory.
And the article paints a vivid picture of the audience.
It does.
They would eagerly anticipate this festival for months.
Yeah.
And their engagement with the music was palpable.
They weren't just listening to the music. They were deeply absorbed in it, connecting with those rhythms and melodies.
The author even quotes Pandit Bhishma Dev Bedi, a renowned musician, who said that this was the only music festival in India where the music wasn't heard, but eaten.
Wow. What a powerful way to describe that experience.
Yeah, it speaks to that visceral nature of the music, how it resonated on a deep level with the listeners.
The article goes on to explain how Dhrupad was introduced to this region by a saint named Pandit Jwala Prasad. He led a group called the Dhanusha Yagya Mandala, which performed Ramalila, a dramatic enactment of the epic Ramayana.
So Dhrupad was integrated into these larger cultural events.
It was.
Right?
Yeah.
Not just performed in isolation.
Drupad's songs were woven into those Ramalila performances, adding this musical and emotional depth.
It's another example of how music served as a unifying force.
Yes.
Right? Connecting these different aspects of life and spirituality.
Speaking of regional variations, the next article takes us to Bengal. Exploring the introduction and dissemination of Dhrupad in Bengal.
It's like following the path of a musical traveler across geographical and cultural boundaries.
The author, Itu Banerjee, argues that Dhrupad couldn't have been introduced to Bengal before the arrival of the spiritual leader, Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya Dev, who lived from 1486 to 1533.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is such a key figure in Bengali history, known for his devotion to Krishna and for sparking this bhakti movement that swept the region.
The article makes a compelling case that the musical form that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers embraced was not Dhrupad, but Vishnupad.
The distinction between Dhrupad and Vishnupad is really important. While they share similarities, they have distinct characteristics in historical context.
Vishnupad, as its name suggests, focuses on Vishnu, particularly his incarnation as Krishna. It's deeply rooted in Vaishnavism.
And the article cites historical evidence, including the writings of Abu Fazl, the court historian of the Mughal Emperor Akbar.
Abu Fazl mentions a vocal form prevalent in Mathura, Krishna's birthplace, called Bishanpada, clearly referencing Vishnupad. He describes it as having 6 or 7 lines of text focused on praising Krishna.
So if Vishnupad was dominant in Mathura, the heartland of Krishna worship,
exactly,
it makes sense that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu And his followers,
yes,
who were connected to the Braj region,
right,
would embrace this form.
And the article argues that Vishnupad, with its emphasis on devotion and simplicity, was more suited to the Bengali people's temperament at that time.
It seems each region had its own musical sensibilities.
You're right.
Its own preferences for specific forms and styles.
Exactly.
The article also delves into a unique form of Dhrupad that did take root in Bengal.
Right.
The Vishnupur style.
Vishnupur, a town in West Bengal, has such a rich musical heritage.
So how did Dhrupad evolve in this context?
The Vishnupur style is known for its simplicity, with minimal ornamentation, and a more relaxed approach to raga forms.
So it seems like it adapted to the local musical aesthetic.
It seems like it did.
Right.
Yeah.
Blending elements of Dhrupad with the prevailing sensibilities of Bengal.
The article suggests that the Vishnupur style might have evolved from an ancient musical tradition called Sudagiri, which branched into two streams, the Daguri Bani and the Gadahari Bani.
So musical traditions, they often evolve through branching and blending. Expert, adapting to new contexts while retaining elements of their origins.
Precisely. It's a dynamic process.
Yes.
Where tradition is constantly in flux, responding to those creative impulses of each generation.
Now, the article also explores why Hindustani Dhrupad, as practiced in North India, didn't gain widespread acceptance in Bengal during Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time. And it suggests two main reasons. First, the devotional music of Kirtana was already deeply rooted in Bengali culture, fulfilling the spiritual and musical needs of the people.
Kirtana is a powerful form of devotional singing, often accompanied by ecstatic dancing and chanting. It's integral to Bengali Vaishnavism.
And second, the complex ornamentation and rigorous training required for Hindustani Dhrupad might not have appealed to the Bengali aesthetic, which leaned towards a more spontaneous and emotive style.
It's fascinating how cultural preferences can shape the reception and evolution of musical traditions.
Now, the article also notes that the decline of the Mughal Empire in Bengal led to a shift in musical patronage. The traditional court musicians, the ustads, they lost their primary source of support.
So what became of these ustads?
Yeah. What happened to them?
They adapted. They found new ways to sustain their art. They began teaching music more broadly, but they were reluctant to share their deepest secrets, the specialized techniques passed down through generations.
Like they were guardians of this precious tradition, protecting it from dilution or misuse.
Consequently, Bengalis who were interested in Dhrupad or other Hindustani forms often traveled to the traditional centers, places like Lucknow, Delhi, Banaras, Gaya, Patna, and Jaipur.
So the flow of musical knowledge reversed.
It did.
Instead of the music traveling to Bengal, the students traveled to the music.
Exactly. It speaks to the enduring power of tradition, the lengths that people would go to for authentic knowledge.
Now, the article concludes by highlighting Ganga Narayan Chattopadhyay, a pivotal figure in popularizing Dhrupad in Bengal. He was one of the first to establish Dhrupad as a respected form outside of those traditional ustad families.
So this marked a shift, a democratization of Dhrupad, making it accessible to a wider range of students.
Like opening the doors to this treasure house.
It is.
Allowing more people to experience the beauty and depth of this ancient tradition.
Now let's journey to Nepal. With the final article. Buddhist Dhrupad Karya in Nepal.
This sounds intriguing. Tell me more about this ancient...
it's the living tradition.
The author, Richard Wittes, introduces us to Karya songs, which he describes as the earliest specimens of Dhrupads that have thus far come down to us.
That's quite a statement.
It is.
So what are Karya songs? And what makes them so unique?
Karya songs are Buddhist devotional texts believed to date back to the 11th century, though some may be even older.
Wow.
They were discovered in a manuscript in Nepal in 1916 and have fascinated scholars ever since.
It's like finding a musical time capsule.
It is.
Right, offering this glimpse into a musical world from centuries ago.
And what makes Karya songs particularly intriguing is that they're still performed today by newer Buddhist priests in the Kathmandu Valley.
So this is a direct link to the past.
It is.
It's a living tradition.
Exactly.
Now, these Karya songs share some striking similarities with Dhrupad. They're both devotional.
Yes.
They have a specific structure that includes a refrain. And they emphasize the text.
Right.
So it seems like there's a historical connection.
There does,
between these two forms.
Wittes argues that Karya is a precursor to Dhrupad, predating the development of the classical Dhrupad tradition we know today.
Like looking at the roots of a musical tree?
It is.
Right?
Yes.
Observing how it grew and branched out over centuries.
The article also details the specific features of Karya songs, describing their structure, the ragas and talas they employ, and even the singing style.
Like getting a musical blueprint.
It is.
Right. Understanding the building blocks of this ancient form.
Wittes provides a detailed analysis of Sri Mahamanjushri, a Karya song praising the Bodhisattva Manjushri.
Manjushri is such a revered figure.
He is.
In Mahayana Buddhism, associated with wisdom and knowledge.
The song describes his attributes and virtues, much like Dhrupad compositions often praise deities or rulers.
A reminder that music has always been this powerful way to express devotion and reverence.
No, Wittes also points out differences between Karya and Dhrupad, particularly in their performance practices. Karya, for instance, traditionally doesn't use a drone, a fundamental element of Dhrupad.
That's significant.
It is.
The drone creates this constant tonal backdrop, grounding the melody.
So the absence of a drone suggests that Karya might represent a musical aesthetic that predates the use of drones in Indian music.
It's a reminder that musical traditions are constantly evolving.
Yes.
Right. Even these fundamental elements, like the drone, weren't always present.
Wittes concludes by pondering whether Karya can truly be considered Buddhist Dhrupad.
It raises a question about what defines a musical tradition.
Right.
Is it specific structural elements?
Yeah.
Or is it the underlying spiritual and cultural context?
There's no easy answer.
Right.
Karya shares similarities with Dhrupad, but it also has its own unique features and historical trajectory.
It's a reminder that musical genres are fluid.
They are.
Right?
Yes.
It can evolve, adapt, and blend, defying strict categorization.
The beauty of studying Karya is that it offers this glimpse into the past, showing how a musical tradition evolved over centuries while retaining its core essence.
It's a reminder that music transcends time and space.
It does.
Right.
Yes.
Connecting us to the legacies of our ancestors.
This Dhrupad Annual is full of just fascinating insights.
Yes.
And it also includes something else that's incredibly valuable.
It is a bibliography on Dhrupad.
Oh, wow.
Compiled by Dr. Françoise Delvoye, also known as Nalini.
Dr. Delvoye's work is just a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to delve deeper into Dhrupad.
Yeah.
It brings together a wealth of materials, books, articles, even unpublished manuscripts.
Wow.
In English, Hindi, and Persian.
It's amazing to see how scholarship on this topic has crossed linguistic boundaries, showing how music can captivate and inspire across cultures.
Absolutely.
And of course, no discussion of Dhrupad is complete without mentioning the Dhrupad Mela.
Absolutely. The Dhrupad Mela is a pilgrimage from Dhrupad enthusiasts. It's this gathering where musicians and audiences come together to celebrate this ancient art form. Now, the 1992 annual includes a Dhrupad news section covering the 17th annual Dhrupad Mela held in Varanasi in February 1991.
Wow.
Imagine being there on the banks of the Ganges, immersed in this incredible music.
It must have been an unforgettable experience,
Yeah.
steeped in history and spirituality.
The article lists the many musicians who performed at the Mela, showcasing this wealth of talent within the Dhrupad tradition.
Yeah.
We see renowned vocalists, instrumentalists, and patronage players all coming together to share their art.
It's like a who's who of Dhrupad.
It is.
Right. Yes. A testament to the vibrancy of this living tradition.
The article also mentions other Dhrupad events that took place that year, including a Samaro in Lucknow, honoring the memory of the late Bhagwan Das Mridangacharya, a celebrated patronage player.
It's heartwarming to see these tributes.
It is, right.
These efforts to honor the legacy of the masters and ensure that their contributions are remembered.
It speaks to the deep respect within the Dhrupad community, a recognition that the tradition thrives because of those who came before.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
Through this 1992 Dhrupad Annual.
Yes.
We've explored the origins of Dhrupad, its connections to various spiritual traditions, regional variations, and even glimpses into the lives of those who had dedicated themselves to this art form.
It's remarkable to consider how a musical tradition with roots in ancient India continues to evolve and adapt over centuries. As we've seen, Dhrupad is not static.
Right.
It's a dynamic expression of culture, constantly in conversation with the past, present, and future.
This exploration of Dhrupad offers a unique perspective for us as we decode the scriptures.
Absolutely.
It reminds us that music is a language that reflects the soul of a culture, offering insights into the historical and spiritual context surrounding these ancient traditions.
Absolutely.
We hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to explore the rich world of Dhrupad further.
A fascinating world.
Thank you for joining us on the Samvaad Podcast Series.
Thank you.
Until next time. Keep seeking, keep learning, and keep the conversation going.